Hey everybody, I'm Brandon. Welcome back to the Danger Planet. We're talking about some Star Wars Shatterpoint. Make a Wookiee noise, lads. That's that, guys. That's not what Wookiees sound like. All right.
Maybe this Wookiee likes to talk in a different dialect.
All right, everybody. My name is Brandon. I'm joined by Vitali
Hello.
and Ian.
That's me.
And today we're talking about the first of four parts of the Star Wars Shatterpoint Core Set. This is the squad that is led by General Anakin Skywalker. What a lad. Or a Chad.
He is quite a Chad in this game.
Oh, man.
He cuts everyone in half.
He's got big Chad energy, not going to lie. So let's just literally just snap right into it, right? Anakin is one of the 7 squad point characters who has 4 force points. There's only 2 in the game so far. It's who's it? It's him and Dooku, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And he has 4 wild abilities. He has an activated ability, Force Jump, which you've seen on a bunch of different cards now. It costs 1 force. Each character in the unit can go ahead and jump. He has a reactive ability called I'm Going to End This, which is probably the most prominent ability on his card. For 2 force points, after this unit makes a combat action, it can use this ability. One character in this unit may make an attack targeting one of the same enemy characters within range and line of sight. So basically, he gets to attack twice.
Yeah, I mean, Anakin does a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and we'll look at his stance.
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
look at his stance card in a minute, but just to cover up, he has deflect as a reactive ability. So after a ranged attack targeting a character in this unit, he can use it, and then if the opponent rolls 1 or more results, they'll take 2 missed results. They'll take 2 damage, and then his identity ability. This is where the fun begins. Is when a character in the unit wounds an enemy primary or secondary unit. After the effects is resolved, move the struggle token 1 space towards your momentum tokens. Then, if the wounded character is a primary unit, every Allied Galactic Republic character may heal. That's yeah. So, like in most cases, you're gonna fling Anakin basically at an enemy character. You're gonna wound them, and then once you wound them, your whole team heals 1, which is wild.
I mean, he's not the fastest of the primaries, but like he's definitely not slow.
Oh, and he has
and I think he
has 11 durability and 3 stamina. Because he's a character, of course, he has 3 stamina. Well, in most cases, yeah, dude. His backer card is wild. He's 501st, Force user, Galactic Republic Jedi. Those are probably some important things because that's going to be like a lot of list building. But right now, every single light side unit is Galactic Republic, so that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think he's probably the best pure beat stick in the game right now.
Yeah.
It's between him and Maul for just like straight output, and while Maul's a little more flexible because he actually has a ranged attack.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He's got less health and does less damage.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, there is only so much damage you can really do to a single unit, right? There's not really a cap, but once you wound them, it doesn't matter anymore. And so, like, if you're hitting someone for 7 and then you hit them again for 7, the 5 or 6 of the second 7 aren't going to matter. But you are correct, Ian. He doesn't have a range attack, which is really interesting. He just has melee, so he's one of a few characters that just straight up lacks range.
Well, I mean that tracks with most primaries. The only primaries that as far as I know, the only primaries that have a range attack are Maul and Dooku.
Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Grievous. Well, not Grievous is out yet, but
Grievous has a sharp.
Oh no, you're right. Ahsoka does.
But Ahsoka and Obi-Wan don't have range
right.
attacks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's fairly common for them to give the Force to not give the Force users range attacks.
Wild. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's just Dooku and Maul. I love Maul's though. Maul's is the best range attack. Because it's just a lightsaber throw. But we'll get to Maul. We'll get to Maul in a future episode. For now, Mr. Anakin. His front of stance card, Form 5 Shemso, is like damage, strained in damage, and then he has a split for like a jump damage or a pin damage and shove damage, reposition damage. So like if you're getting to the end of his track, he's doing 10 damage, right? which is pretty crazy. And his expertise on this track is also pretty nuts. At 1, he gets a crit. At 2, he gets 2 crits. Right? So for two expertise, he's just getting 2 crits. If you get to 4, you get 3 crits. But quite frankly, that's probably enough. And with 5 damage on literally his first 2 options in this form, and this is his like 8 dice attack form. We're just gonna see. I think most people probably start in the other form, and then when you actually run in, flip over to this. Yeah, Gemso is wild. 5, you get 2 hits in, you do 5 damage. You get 3 hits in, you do 7 damage and a strained, which is enough to put most things in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, in my playing so far, I've found that Anakin is almost kind of unnecessary. Like, I don't think he's a bad card by any stretch of the imagination. And he definitely fits into a lot of teams very well. But I find that you can make just as good of a team while also be more flexible using Maul and Obi-Wan. He slots into a role that is very heavily contested because even the ones that aren't dedicated beat sticks still do a ton of damage.
I mean, I think Anakin certainly does a crap ton of damage, but almost maybe too much.
I honestly, with how good Obi-Wan is right now with his synergies and how defensive the defensive buffs that he provides to his crew. He's a great complement to Anakin, where you can just let Anakin run around and beat up those primaries and secondaries and basically score you a point off of just doing what he's meant to do, and that's just beat people up. And as we saw with his form, like his offensive form, he might not have great movement getting into somebody, but after he smacks them, he then can jump and then reposition. That's a lot of extra movement that he can get off of just fighting somebody.
And this is where the fun begins. Also, does allow for some pretty wild swings. If you're controlling 3 points and you knock somebody out, you're getting a 4-point swing there. Plus a struggle token for knocking someone unconscious. It ends up being like a net 5 swing. It's very, I guess, difficult to play around him if Anakin gets stuck in.
I will say, Form 5 Xian, he has on his other side of the stance card, a little bit less aggressive, a little bit more defensive. He has 6 dice, 7 attack, 6 defense dice instead of 5, and 7 attack. Also, he does more crit conversion. So at the top end, he has 3 blocks and convert a crit to a hit. He's a little bit less stabby as well, although he gets his reposition much earlier. So for 3 hits, he does 4 damage, a heal, and a reposition, and a shove, which is more than enough to basically take a point, knock somebody off a point. And I think the one I guess rebuttal I have with Anakin is I think that if you're running in and tagging primaries, most of the time you do need to do a good amount of damage. And so if you're running in tagging primaries and then killing them off onto a point and getting it, I think you're in pretty good shape. And like being able to mandate to guarantee that that's going to happen, I think has a lot of play to it. And like if you can't, if you're not, there's no world that you're not in, right? Like you're gonna, if you have the 2 force to spend on, I'm going to end this, I think that you're going to end this. Like you have to roll real bad.
Like I said, personally, I just don't prefer to use Anakin as my beat stick because I find that he is very, unlike other beat sticks where they're a little more multi-purpose. Anakin is very much just send him out there, kill things. If he gets pinned, if he gets kited, he's not really doing much else for me. Whereas like because he doesn't have force speed, where it's like at least Ahsoka or Maul can get around the board really fast. I don't think it's wrong to use Anakin. You get a really deep force pool. You get some of the best damage in the game. But he's much more of a like designing your list around him piece, in my opinion, than he is an addition to a list because you just need to fill in a second master.
And to be fair, if you're buying Anakin, you also do get Ahsoka Tano and Maul, right? Like you just get those; they just come in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hop over to his secondary unit, Captain Rex. Captain Rex has a start of activation tactic on his card. Get a move on soldier. So at the start of this unit's activation, you choose a character in this unit or another allied Galactic Republic character anywhere on the board, and they can dash and may gain a hunker token, which is pretty strong. I mean, I think it's real good. It lets you get your slower moving characters like Dooku. I mean, not sorry, weird Freudian slip. It lets you get your slower moving characters that don't have as much movement, like Anakin or Obi-Wan, or you can get a squad a little bit up to go tag an objective early before they move away from it. He has an active ability called Defensive Maneuver, which you'll see on basically every clone trooper model in the game, where for a force point they can dash. If they dash, any of the characters in the unit can dash, and then any characters that did dash gain a hunker token. Rex's special sort of reactive ability, I'm always first kid. For one force, if this unit is not wounded after an allied clone trooper supporting unit within range 3 of this unit makes a combat action, this unit can use this ability and can dash. If it does, makes a 5 dice attack, melee or ranged attack, targeting one of the same enemy characters within range and line of sight. So Rex just gets to pile on the damage against with any supporting clone trooper unit. Which is pretty strong. I mean, it lets you take your sort of weak infantry and move in. And then he's got two innate abilities. Bring It On Clankers. So after an allied clone trooper unit within 3 gains a hunker token, they can heal 1. Brothers in Arms. So while he has a hunker token, he is steadfast.
Yeah, and that's another ubiquitous clone ability. I believe you see that on all the clone sheets.
I think most of them. Maybe is it all? Every single one has Brothers in Arms?
Yeah.
I believe so. I would have to check the 212,
Yeah.
But if I recall, that is another ubiquitous one. I think Captain Rex is fine. He works really well in Oops All Clones lists. What Vitaly and I have kind of found through playing around with those lists, though, is that if you're cutting somebody from the Oops All Clones list, it's usually Captain Rex.
Yeah, I think he can do great in a, like I said, just pure all clones. That way you get the most synergy out of his abilities. You get that extra damage you were talking about with I'm Always First Kid. And like I said, he gives the extra movement to your clones, which, they only have the dash and they gotta spend force to do it. This is a way to just kind of get some stuff moving early. But he is one where I've played lists without him and I'm not hurting, but I've also played lists where he has been integral in making, out of sequence plays where it's not his turn, but he's still sliding out and making an attack on something that I really need to put down.
Yeah, and I mean, he's range 5, right? So being able to slide him to go buff an objective or something else just by activating your clone troopers is very strong. There's a lot to be said for out of activation movement, and him being able to passively trigger it while other things are activating is somewhat unique so far in the game. And he's like, also, I keep forgetting to mention this, but 9 durability, 2 stamina. Pretty standard loadout for like a secondary guy. Yeah, he does some damage too when he attacks, right? So even if you're only getting 5 dice, his expertise is kind of bad on both. Really, it's like 1 or 2 is 2 hits, 3 and 4 are 2 crits, 5 plus is crit hit on both his ranged and melee. But he has 7 dice, right?
I mean, yeah, he has 7. So on his regular attack, he has 7 dice. On the 5 attack, he does 1. But if you roll 1 expertise, you're getting some value back because you're getting 2 hits out of 1 expertise dice. Or if you roll 3, like it's kind of one of those weird things where it's like you don't want to roll too many expertise with him. You either want to roll 1 or you want to roll 3, something like that. So you're getting the best value out of those expertise dice, while also getting some hits or crits on the other dice.
It's either like at 2 damage, basically at 2 hits through, it's either 4 damage or 2 damage and 2 shoves, right? So if we're doing I'm gonna make a 5 dice ranged attack at you from, scoot him towards an objective after you shoot somebody within 3 of him. That's completely unrelated, but would let you claim, ownership of that objective at the end of the activation, and then shoot the target that you just shot with the clone troopers and moved into, and then yeet them out of the objective, and then your clone troopers then take it, easily capping 2 objectives. I think that there's a lot of play there, and I'm really excited to do that whenever I'm playing him.
Yeah, he 100% feels like a character that people that really get their positioning down in a mission, they're going to get a lot of value out of Rex, where like he's one of those ones where he gives you some great entry value, but as you get better with the system and Rex as a whole, I feel like you're going to see that.
And I think that Rex really better returns. Really is the kind of optimal planning that you can sort of get out of, especially in the transition from from phase 1 to phase 2. So right as you transition into the second struggle, when you go from all the objectives are clear, really being able to sort of position yourself in an optimal position, especially if you won the first one and didn't get to choose where they go. I think there's a lot to be said for that. So I really like Captain Rex. And 7 attack, 5 defense is nothing to snuff at. I think he's pretty solid there. Yeah. Ian, any fun anecdotes about Rex? He's got a cool shoulder pad.
No, I mean just that I think he synergizes really well with, because of all of his hunker abilities. He synergizes really well with Obi-Wan. Being able to almost more importantly than the out of phase movement is the out of phase hunker that he allows people to put on. Like you can very rapidly get your entire team covered with hunker, and that's when the Obi-Wan squad becomes pretty difficult to deal with. So I think he's fairly, I don't want to say critical, but he's a fairly strong pick if you're running Obi-Wan. Everyone else, he's kind of he's a solid flex pick. I wish he's a little more mobile, I think, is my only big thing with him.
He's got the one dash, and then you can use his dash and hunker on himself if you really need it, but I think in general you probably want to be using that on other things.
You really feel his lack of X-axis mobility, with especially if you're running all clones, because none of them have any sort of jetpack or scale ability. So, or not, at least not yet. Once the clone troopers come out, we're going to have clones with scale. But
And speaking of clones, we have the supporting unit that comes in the squad. It's the 501st Clone Troopers. They cost 3 points, which is why they work, with Anakin. They have defensive maneuver, which we've already talked about. Brother in arms, which we've already talked about. And they have this is the first time we're talking about a. Well, I guess depending on when you watch the Obi-Wan box, but their reaction of their ability, coordinated fire. They have coordinated fire strained. And it's super important to note that the symbol for the status token that you get is not like a debuff to them. It doesn't mean that they get the status token, like they don't get strained whenever you use it, which a lot of people had questions about sort of early on before they errated or clarified it in the FAQ. So coordinated fire strained means when a character in another allied Galactic Republic unit makes an attack as part of a combat action. So it can't be like a bonus attack like Rex's eat in and then punch. It has to be you taking an action during your activation. Before dice are rolled, you can use this ability. You can only use it once per turn, so if you're attacking with other clones, you can only get it on one of the two things, because all abilities are only usable once. But if the target's within 5 of a character in this unit, they just gain a strain token. The big thing to remember there, outside of strain just being an amazing condition to put on people, because 3 is a lot of damage for a lot of units. It's almost half these guys' health, for instance. Is that if your combat tree gives them strained, anytime you get a duplicate condition, you take a damage. So it is a bunch of damage if they don't clear it before they activate, but also it's a way to add some additional damage to somebody that's attacking if they have strained in their combat tree. And of course they have 7 durability, 2 stamina, because they're just a support unit, and at 7 durability on a support unit, it's in the lower maybe or so rung, but they're pretty solid guys.
One thing to note too that I don't believe we've talked about yet, but it is important, especially with the clone troopers. Their coordinated fire doesn't cost anything to play, but it will once they go down to a wounded 1 token. AMG has clarified that all abilities that are activatable have a cost, even if there's nothing listed. If there's nothing listed, the cost is 0. But when you become wounded, the cost goes up 1. These guys are very fragile.
So it is specifically active abilities and reactive abilities. It's not innate abilities, and it's not identity abilities.
So because these guys are very fragile, they don't have the best defensive track, and they're 7 health, 2 stamina. So like, you do have to be pretty careful with your positioning with these guys, because while they are very powerful, a lot of their power comes from everything being free and then being able to just like put a lot of DACA out at a pretty good distance. If they start taking wounded tokens, they're going to start losing efficiency very quickly.
Yeah, very much so. And looking at their stance card, you can see that they have 7 range dice and 5 melee dice, and 5 range defense and 4 melee defense, which gives you, I think, more than anything else, an indication you really need to keep these guys at range. You do not want them up in the melee. You want them snagging back objectives and applying concentrated fire. Or coordinated fire, rather. Any other thoughts about these guys?
Yes.
I mean, I think Ian, really, that was a great summation. You really covered, I think, all the important bits about them.
Yeah, they're just one of the 501st and the 212th. They really get scary when they're played together in kind of a castle just moving around the board together, because then the other squad pings their coordinated fire when they shoot, and the 212th puts pinned on an enemy unit when you shoot them, and the first thing you get with this one is pinned, so that's just an extra damage you can put on somebody. They're big about synergy. It's why they really want to play with Obi-Wan, so they can get the most out of those hunker tokens. They don't lose them when they get put in melee, and it bumps that defense up a little bit. Like I said, you still don't want to push them in unless you have to, but yeah, they really, really enjoy playing with Obi-Wan because they get their defense just goes through the roof.
Yeah, buddy. So I think that pretty much concludes the Anakin squad review. Make sure to keep an eye here on the Danger Planet if you want more Shatterpoint info. If you are looking at other skirmishy type games, we cover a lot of stuff like that. Mostly Shatterpoint Malifaux, but we get around. Definitely, if you like these models, by the way, because they're pretty sick. I mean, the Rex model is awesome. He's got this awesome shoulder pad. The Anakin model is really good. And if you want some help painting or building yours, check out the Goonhammer article we're linking below. If you're not checking out Goonhammer for tabletop wargaming, you're wrong. Check them out. They got all kinds of good stuff. And also jump in our Discord. Links below. That's what I got, I think. Keep an eye for the rest of our Shatterpoint content coming soon. And just generally keep an ear to the planet so we can tell you all the cool stuff that we're doing and what's going on. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Say goodbye, guys.
Bye. Goodbye, guys.
Oh my gosh, you did it.